It looks like the attendees has plateaued at about 25, and I'm sure a few more will come in. So with that, then we'll call this meeting of the Montoursville Area School District Board of School Directors. It's virtual meeting called to order on this Tuesday, September 22nd, 2020 at 7:13 p.m. And Brandy, if you would take a roll call.
Okay. It looks like Mr. Albert is missing this evening. So we will start with Dr. Beery.
Dr. Beery here.
Mr. Kunkel.
Mr. Conkle here.
Mrs. Marriott.
Mrs. Marriott here.
Dr. Mathers.
Dr.
Mr. Ruffing.
Mr. Ruffing here.
Mr. Schimmel.
Mr. Schimmel here.
Mr. Snell.
Mr. Snell here.
Mr. Ulmer.
Mr. Ulmer here.
Okay, our first agenda item then is a presentation, and with that, Christina wants to just present where we are, the state of the state of the district address at this point in time. So Christina, go ahead.
Thank you, President Schimmel. Well, here we are in September, 2/3 of the way through, and our numbers for Lycoming County are continuously going down. However, we do see some blips in certain areas, but they seem to be pretty much contained at this point in time. So the administrative staff, our board staff, leadership, and then our union leadership, we have still been in conversations about a reentry plan, and we are determining what that would look like. And there are a few options that we do have. And we are looking at options that, again, will be very measured, will be very slow and steady, and that would more than likely be bringing students back at different times into either a full capacity or almost a full week's capacity to begin with, until we can get everybody on the same page and then run with a 5-day-a-week program. We don't have anything in stone at this point. We are trying to assess certain activities within the community, I will say, as well as understanding more of the changes that we constantly keep seeing. The CDC is changing courses and direction at this point in time. We see some of the rules of the governor that he had in place being overturned by a judge. So there are many pieces to this puzzle as we keep moving forward. So I've received emails, which has been wonderful to receive, and I have spoken with a few different parents. I think I've spoken with parents from kindergarten through 6th, and I shared with them some of preliminary ideas, and they are not plans. I will just call them ideas at this point in time for our district to be moving back into more of a full-fledged 5-day system that we all know and love, truly love. But some of the pieces that we have to share with the public, and that's why I wanted to be able to speak this evening to this point, you have to understand a few things as we move back into more of a full routine that we are all used to. And the first thing is that the federal judge's order did not touch the mask mandate. Therefore, students would need to be masked as they are currently. However, if we pull all of our students back into the classrooms, they are not socially distanced. So I want to make that clear to the parents who want their children back and to the parents who may not want their children back. I want all of this to be very transparent, so that's why I am sharing. They will not be socially distanced 6 feet. It is impossible with certain class sizes. Other class sizes, we may be able to maintain 6 feet, maybe 1 or 2 periods a day. But what does that mean for your students? The students then need to realize that they will not have mass breaks, that they will more than likely be eating in their rooms, and that they will more than likely still have many of the same restrictions in hallway directions, in timing, and making sure that we are putting students out to the buses on a schedule where they are flexed so that no one is coming into contact with other people as much as possible. The other thing that parents need to understand is if we see cases of COVID within the district and we see them rising from what we have, it will be an immediate callback, meaning it will immediately go back to hybrid, and that could be for a classroom, that could be for a building, that could be for a district overall. It will depend on the contact tracing that would need to be done and the number of cases that we would see. If it got to the point where it was terribly, I hate to use the word infected, but I will, if there were such infection within our district overall, you could see a remote shutdown for up to 14 days and possibly longer than that should we have more cases that arise during that time. But again, right now we're doing, I think, very well within the county, and our positivity rate is being reduced. So that was one of the factors that the state is using for the districts to move from moderate into that low standard that they are demanding. So just to let the board know, and the board leadership does know this, they've been in on the meetings, you know, we do have some different types of plans on moving students back in, preliminary as they may be. If we keep seeing low numbers, then we could start looking at this hopefully by, I would say, the second week of October. So that is always up for the ever-changing environment that we are living in currently. We are just trying to educate through a pandemic, and parents are trying to educate through a pandemic. This decision will be a decision that we will reach out to parents, we will be reaching out to students, and we will be reaching out to staff, because our staff and our students also have to have say in what we are doing. So we will be reaching out to them first and then using those answers as we reach forward into the public. And we will start that process Thursday in reaching out to the staff. And that is my very short and brief update.
Board members, any questions for the superintendent? Okay, I guess if I could piggyback on that in a different sort of direction in regards to the board, the intent is on October, must be the 7th or something like that, our next meeting, our first meeting in October. The plan is to meet in the high school, likely the auditorium. It would, you know, be a socially distanced, you know, a strategy, of course. The public, at this point, with the way the rulings are going and just trying to apply a little bit of latitude, I mean, I'm inclined to not apply the 25 person limit, but I don't know whether that's doable. I would like to think we could have more than that, because it's not an academic setting. It's not an educational setting. Yeah, it's not a sports event. We would be well under a very low percentage of that auditorium's capacity. We would, but whether it's, I guess, advisable from council to pull that off, I'll be finding out about that. But I want us to be back in. If we can't have more than 25, if that federal ruling stays, I think that opens, I think that sort of is a camel's nose under the tent to maybe have a little latitude, especially with a school board meeting, as important as it is, and it's a public meeting. It's, again, it's not an academic meeting with students, it's the public. So we'll see how that plays out. The worst comes to worst, and we can't have more than 25. If that's the door gets slammed shut, it'll be broadcast, it'll be videoed. The question mark is how successfully that approach, that webinaring from the auditorium, how will it occur? Will we even be able to have, you know, public comment? It's just, there's a couple questions to be answered, a number of questions to be answered, but that's where I want this to go for us. I want us to be in the building on October 7th. So that's what I'm pushing for. And somehow we got to make it happen.
Dave, I do have a question. It relates to what Christina, presented. Are you starting to formulate a timetable where if things continue to fall into place, or a timetable where you'll be prepared to present this structured start or staggered start?
A timetable, in essence, in relationship, I should ask Mr. Ulmer, do you want that to be in relationship to the COVID numbers, or are you looking for the timetable of implementation for us as far as how long it would take us to get everyone back to a 5-day schedule?
Thank you for asking that for clarity. I think initially my thought is just, you mentioned about canvassing these different groups. So do you have a timetable that you want to have that canvassing completed? Then once that's completed, are you going to then set up a timetable where, I guess, that would start to indicate or give the community an idea, if things continue to fall into place, this is where we will start in some form or another, full day school. Now, I will admit, I really look at that elementary group as a high priority group, that if I brought any group back, it would be that K-4. And I assume that's what you're talking about in your administrative meetings, looking at priorities. But just for me personally, that is the group that I would want to see come back first. And I think
the group that we would be seeking to come back first, definitely. However, the one piece that we have to remember is the logistics. So I needed to speak to Joe today, for example, on how much time do you need while the students are already in school 4 days a week and you only have Wednesdays? How much time do you need to get all of the desks and all of the pieces back into the rooms for K1, and then 2, 3, and then 4, 5? How long will it take you to do that? So we have to consider those aspects as well as the logistics on the busing, so that we're making sure that we're trying to be as consistent as possible with those. Lunches, again, just making sure that we're ramping up in the safest manner possible. As far as the timeline for the look to students and to staff, like I said, staff will start this Thursday. I have a meeting in one of the buildings on Thursday. That will be a topic that I'm sure that will be brought up, so I will address it at that point in time as well. So as far as finishing it, I'm not quite sure, because we have an administrative meeting next Wednesday that we will be formulating some more questions on the options that we do have. And some of the options could be coming back 4 days, because as we see those who do need quarantine time, we're still going to need a day for the teachers to be able to go through the lessons with those quarantined and work through some of those logistics. It all depends on how many we have within that quarantine space and how much we need that space and time for them as well. So we will give, I would say we would give at least 2 weeks notice to the parents as much as possible. If it will be affecting your children, you will know which groups are coming back first. And then we'll try to lay this all out. Again, this is all contingent on the numbers and moving forward. And I know that I will probably get the question, well, the numbers haven't gone below what the state is representing in those 2 numbers that they want you to have. And I think some of the pieces that are very confusing for us at this point, and I'm just going to be very blunt with it, is it's very interesting to me that doctors can say to some individuals, we'll give you the test and the test is back within 48 hours. And in some cases, I'm not going to test you at all because the test results don't come back until 14 days, so just stay out 14 days. There are many inconsistencies that we are finding. There's many inconsistencies when we are asking for help and seeking guidance from other organizations who have this as their profession, whereby we're being told this one should stay out and this one shouldn't stay out, but it's the same set of circumstances. So there's many inconsistencies, and we want to make sure that we take every precaution because we're responsible for all students. We're responsible for almost 2,000 students alone. Those are very heavy weights to be holding, and we want to make sure that we are doing that to the best of our abilities. But it is difficult to do when you do not receive consistent information. And that consistent information then makes us wonder if the numbers that we're being told that we need to live within are ever going to be accurate, number one. And if we had more testing, would it mean that we have more cases, or would it mean that we have less cases and you would see the numbers that we need to hit? So I can say that politics and medical professions and education do not speak the same language. And I know that I've said that before, but none of it is speaking the same language. So therefore, we must be consistent in our delivery, and we must make sure that any move that we make is slow and steady, but keep it moving forward. And that's where we are at this point in time.
I found that Dr. Schwartz, his information that he shared, I guess I found it very believable, or it seemed to emphasize a lot of the things I found important. And he is so knowledgeable. I do wonder if you've considered reaching out to him to perhaps join, if he would concede, the administrative discussions. I think he could help bring some of that medical expertise you might be searching for.
Dr. Schwartz and I do speak. I will speak to him outside of administrative meetings. I do not believe that that would be the place. We discuss many, many activities. Dr. Schwartz is also a grandparent in the district, so he does have a vested interest, which I really appreciate. But the admin meetings are probably not the place for him, but we do continue to email back and forth. But
Yeah.
thank you for the
And I shouldn't have said, yeah, admin. It had been more. I'm still have an impression that maybe the pandemic council is still getting together to hash some of these things out. And maybe I'm not correct, there, but that certainly to me would be a place where an individual such as he could find a role.
Definitely, because the pandemic coordinators meetings are at the IU level, and they do involve medical professionals already. They have since, I want to say, the end of June, when these groups were formed, and they have many different individuals. They have individuals from UPMC, from Geisinger, and even there, you will hear differences of opinions. And
Sure.
I would like to get away from people's opinions. I would like to get back to facts, because I work so much better in facts, and I think all of us work so much better in facts. And the problem with COVID is there aren't any. And the fact is it killed 200,000 people. That's a fact. So that's about the only fact I think that we have within this at this point in time. So again, we want kids back, but we want them back safely so that their learning environment is clean and healthy. And we want them back so that what we produce for them is the same quality that they would expect of us too.
Will it be reasonable to look for something at our October board meeting then, that you'll have another update like this, and hopefully maybe we're more on the way to
Absolutely.
establishing some sort of target?
Yes, I would definitely hope by that point we have something rock solid as a plan that we all can agree upon and that fits the needs of what the students need, the parents need, and what our staff is also sharing with us. And I want to say this, while people can email, our staff has been very quietly just doing what they need to do. And they have been rock stars throughout this whole situation. And I think that we need to give them kudos because their world changed forever, absolutely forever. And if you think for 1 second that this is going to go back to the way that it ever was before, it's not, because parent groups will want this kind of diversity within education. So we must be able to work through the pandemic and then work on our WOL and make it as strong as our in-house programs can be with our own staff. You know, that has always been a goal when we've looked at doing things with a cyber environment. So, and we need to thank our nurses. Our school nurses have been working round the clock. I can tell you, we speak on Sunday nights, on Saturday nights, Sunday mornings sometimes. So all of our staff has been doing an exemplary job through this. So I want to sit and talk to them, because I know that there are some frustrations out there within our ranks, and I need to hear that. I need to listen to them as much as I can listen to everyone else. And I appreciate everyone's perspective. I feel like I have always wanted to learn from other people, and that's why we have 15 people in the room when we try to make decisions. It is always good to have perspective, even those perspectives, and most importantly, those perspectives that don't agree with you. I think that's very critical anytime that you are a leader. So I want to hear from our staff, because I know that there are some frustrations at this point in time. I want to help them through those frustrations, and I want to hear what they think, because they're the ones who are going to be standing in a classroom for 7 hours a day with students less than 6 feet from them. So, you know, I want to hear from them too, and they have to be heard as well. So there's my spiel for this evening.
Thank you.
I have two quick things. First, Christina, you brought up the inconsistencies with the test results, getting back the test results. I personally know a line crew that went to Louisiana, and before they came back, they was all tested for COVID down there. And how they was tested was, first of all, they gave them, each of them gave their cell phone number, and then they was, their finger was pricked with a needle and to get a spot of blood, and in 20 minutes they get the phone call on their cell phone whether they had COVID or they didn't have COVID. So I don't know whether that's a new test, and if it's going to make it to Pennsylvania, I don't know. But I just want to let you know, it just shows you how much inconsistency there is with the different tests. And the other thing is, Mr. Schimmel, I want to bring to your attention, you made a statement that it might not be possible to have, you don't know, but it might not be possible to have public comment if we go in the auditorium. I just want to let you know, if that happens and we can't have public comment, it is illegal to have any votes, because there needs to be public comment before any vote is taken.
Well, thank you, Ron. I knew that, and that's why I have the if there. I don't know if we can pull it off. I think I was pretty clear that I don't know if we can pull that off. And it will be the public comment element of it that is the stickler. And if we just can't work it out, we're going to have to stay in this format. And the only thing I could say about this format is we get more attendance to the meeting and we get more discussion with the public than really we did when we had it in person. Now, obviously, there's so much more going on than there was a year ago, and that generates a whole lot of interest. So that's understandable too. But at least this format provides that interface and discussion and receiving comments from the public. So you'll know well before we publicize the next meeting if we can do this, and that's my interest, is to really do that in the auditorium. So
I just wanted to make sure that you didn't miss that point.
no, I'm painfully aware. So Okay. Other board members on
Dave,
anything?
I have one question for you. If we are able to be in the auditorium with public will be mandated to wear masks, correct?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, well, we'll have to have, I mean, everything that we subject the kids to, you know, we have to live by that too. Absolutely.
Dave. Mr. Schimmel.
Yes, Bill.
Yeah, you asked anything else from any board members? Yes, and this is of considerable interest to many people in the community, particularly sports fans. You all received my email last Tuesday following the vote by the U.S. District Judge that shot down the governor's restrictions, many of his restrictions, including indoor and outdoor attendance limits. Of course, as expected, he vetoed it. He will not allow the local school boards to have control over their districts in that regard. And Mr. Taramina had mentioned in a previous communication that the PIAA, of course, is siding with the governor. Some of our neighboring school districts have already voted, symbolic it may be, only symbolic, to increase and go against that attendance limit and to increase attendance in their stadiums, particularly during football season. I don't know. I would like to see the board at our next board meeting in October take a vote, even if it's only symbolic, but to send a message. And hopefully the board would vote to approve this, but to send a message to the PIAA and to the governor that I would hopefully think that most people would find it absolutely senseless to have an outdoor football stadium that I think, and I'm not sure the capacity. I remember at one time hearing 3,700. Mr. Taramina, I had asked him if he knows, or Mr. Notho, I did not ask, but it's somewhere over 3,500. To think that we can only allow 25 to 35 spectators or whatever it is before we hit that 250 limit, I think, in my opinion, it's absolutely ridiculous. Socially distanced, I would think we could put 750 to 1,000 people in our stadium. Not only are we denying, or the governor is denying, the people the enjoyment of these outdoor sporting events, the district is taking a hit on lost ticket sales. Our student groups are taking a hit by not making the profit that they normally do in their concessions. The players, the cheerleaders, the band members don't get to perform in front. I mean, they're performing practically in front of no one. And I just think that this is a way that we could at least get some semblance of normalcy back. You had mentioned you would like to see the board meetings in the auditorium. Well, so would I. I agree. But along that line, I would like to see, and many people would like to see, us be able to put a reasonable number of people in the stadium. So in closing, I would just ask that if there would be interest from other board members to put that on the agenda for our next board meeting. Let the chips fall where they may, whether the board says, yes, we should, or no, we shouldn't. And I do realize that it may only be a symbolic move. Thank you.
Okay. Bill, in the agenda, we actually have that as one of our specific line items to talk about a little later, but if everybody's okay, we'll move that item 5A up to for more discussion. It's spectators at sporting events was item 5A, and we can continue the conversation now. In fact, and maybe it's just as well because we have the public comments coming up, and the public can weigh in as well during that time too. So I guess, and taking off on what you said, Bill, I'm with you. I don't understand why we can't have more. I think, some percentage of a facility's capacity, that's a more rational metric than just some willy-nilly, throw a number at the wall and see if it sticks. So no, I agree with you. Absolutely.
All right, thank you, Mr. Schimmel. Yes, I was aware that is on the agenda for later in the meeting. I just wanted to get that out early, let people have a little time to think about it until we get to that point in the agenda. And I thank you very much.
Okay. All right. Then in that
I
case,
agree.
go ahead, Ron.
Excuse me. I agree with what Mr. Ruffing said. I do have a question. Mr. Taramino, how many football players are there on our team this year?
I believe we have a roster of 62.
Okay, we have, and how many coaches?
15.
Okay, we have 62 kids, 15 coaches, and let's say the other team that we're playing has a similar amount. I find it amazing that, and don't get me wrong, I think that we need to up the attendance at sports, but I do find it amazing that there you have, let's say 140 people in close proximity in a football stadium without face masks, yet as soon as our team walks inside the school, they have to be 6 foot apart and they have to wear a face mask. That is why I say that not only should we have sports, but we should have 5 days a week education for our students. And I think that's another thing we should vote on.
I think, Ron, nobody wants to say we shouldn't have education for our students, but it's a matter of risk, percentage of risk that you're taking. And outside is less of a risk than inside a school. And that's been proven in the statistics, certainly, that the risk of contracting COVID when you're inside a building is higher than outside. And when we add more students, you're increasing the risk. They may not be all socially distanced at this point, and they are wearing masks, but the more people you put in the building, if we just go wham bam, everybody's there and everything opens up, I don't think that's a wise decision. I think slow and steady, going by the numbers and the science is what we need to follow. And I'm not voting not to
Got
vote.
it.
I'm just saying we need to take it slow.
Dottie, I understand what you're saying, but as far as I know, there isn't any classrooms that have 140 people, 140 kids in. So when you have 140 people, even though they're outside, but when they're in close proximity, and when I say close, you realize it is close, real close. So, and if one of those people get COVID and then the contract tracing starts, do you realize how many people that's going to affect when you have 140 and the people that they contact? So what I'm saying is if the chances of that, if we feel the chances of that are slim, then we also should feel that 25 kids in a classroom with masks on is slim too.
I think one of the things that we are seeing from other local districts, Ron, is that the sports are quarantining faster as teams. That is one thing that you've seen locally already. So I think Dottie's observation is an accurate observation that way.
Oh, I think her observation is accurate also, but I also think that my observation's pretty accurate, especially when, as I mentioned in our last board meeting, these school districts that are coming from high impact areas. And if we feel
like
as
Columbia
a
County
board,
isn't a high impact area though, and these are local districts. When we're watching teams go down, it is still a local community that we're dealing with in Lycoming County. And again, I think that you bring up one point. There are many other points, and we must listen to the staff as well, because they're the ones who are standing with those teachers 7 hours a day. It's not, okay, I'm here and I'm outside with these students. I appreciate your viewpoint as much as I appreciate Dottie's, but that's where I go back to the fact that I need to be able to speak to the teachers who are standing with these students 7 hours a day. Bus drivers, you know, I want to make sure that we are all having a say at this and understanding everyone's perspective. So I understand you're not scared, you're moving forward, you're happy to see us move forward. I think there are certainly other people who have that observation and that perspective. So I'm glad that you speak about it. I think other people do have other perspectives though too. And
well, Christina, it's like I said also in the last meeting, I'm good with what the majority wants if the majority is straight across the board. But when you aren't straight across the board, that's what really bothers me, that it just seems like education isn't quite as important as the sports is. And that's 100% wrong. And if that's the way people are feeling, that is
speak to the
wrong.
legislators. We didn't make that determination. PIAA made that determination, and so did our legislators. So if we want to talk about inconsistencies, there's the politics of how it's running things. So I agree with you, Ron. I agree. I don't think that you should be sending inconsistent messages to school districts and just say, let them handle it, let them figure it out. I think that's wrong.
We also could be like other school districts are and not go with what PIAA says. There is school districts that stop their sports, their fall sports, until January to see what happens in that length of time. We didn't have to follow PIAA, but we chose to follow PIAA.
I think, Ron, too, and I hear your concern, I really do. I hear the concern of the messaging, but I believe that the athletic plan that was developed, and what I'm being told is the coaches are being very strict on making sure that the athletes follow that plan. So there shouldn't be 140 kids unmasked in close proximity on that football field. Only ones that are unmasked are those that are actually in contact during the time that they're in contact. When they come off the field, they're supposed to be masked, and hopefully they are socially distanced as well. I haven't watched a football game, so I can't attest to that, but we haven't had any cases with our athletes.
One of the difference, you got to remember, one of the differences between the athletics is that for the athletics, that's a voluntary activity. That we're not mandating they be there. For education and academics, we're mandating, the state is mandated, their kids got to be in school to be educated up until age 17. So those children the ones that are being in classrooms, they don't have a choice. They've got to be in a educational setting, and we've chosen to use the hybrid model to educate them because of the risk, that we're minimizing the risk in every way possible. But the football players and the other athletic type events, even cheerleading and those, those are voluntary activities. We're not telling them they have to do that. So for what it's worth.
Well, Mr. Schimmel, I just got to remind you that because it is a Montoursville School District activity that is paid for with taxpayers' dollars, your argument is moot, because it is taxpayers' dollars that pays for these activities.
Well, you reminded me of something I already knew, but thank you. All right, if there's nothing else, let's now go to the public comment section. Sebastian, go ahead and take over and manage that for us.
Okay, so at this time, we will allow public comment, and just a reminder that we typically allow 3 minutes for you to speak, and we just ask you to please state your full name and address before speaking. If you'd like to speak, there's an icon on your screen that looks like a hand. You can click on that at this time, and as we see hands being raised, we will go down the list alphabetically and allow you to speak one at a time.
Yeah, Sebastian, and before we start opening the mics, we've over the last few months, we've engaged in a question and answer format with the public, and that's been good. It's been very good to get input. I wonder at this point now, are the questions that we might receive so specific to a subject or a academic, curriculum or whatever, that those questions might be better directed towards the teacher or the building principal. So if we get too deep into the finite on questions, again, you're better off reaching out to your child's teacher or the building principal. So with that, then let's go ahead and we'll go with the comment section. And if there's a question that we think can, benefit the population at large, we'll try to respond to that.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to allow Dawn to speak.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I just really have a question as to what exactly is a hybrid model, because my children go to school Monday and Tuesday. They're off Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. They have access to their teachers on Wednesday from 9 until, 11 or something like that via Zoom. My wife and I both have full-time jobs. It's impossible for us to be home and connect them via Zoom to access their teachers whenever they have a question. And they're both bringing home packets of homework for 3 days of not being at school. That seems like a month's worth of work. So I just really want to know what a hybrid model is.
Hi, Dawn, this is Christina. Am I picking up that your name is Dawn Lynch?
Yes.
Okay, and Dawn, can you just let everybody know where you're from in the community?
Upper Fairfield Township, Montoursville.
Okay. Thank you for that. We ask that of all those who are speaking. A hybrid model means exactly what we have currently, meaning that there is a hybrid of in-person learning and an instructional delivery method that also includes the remote learning. And that is what your children are in currently. And that is what we are hoping that we can move back to, the 5-day system that we would all love and have very willingly back at this point in time.
Wow. Was that the answer?
That's the answer.
Okay.
Is there a separate question? You still have some time. Is there a separate question?
Well, no, except for like the remote learning part. They're not learning remotely. They're being home and we're trying to teach them how to do their schoolwork on the weekend, which seems to be, you know, a giant pain in the butt because that's the time of the week that they want to be free and live their life. And we're trying to teach them how to do schoolwork.
And the hybrid includes when you're talking about students not remote learning is not happening. How old are your children, may I ask?
Yeah, there's one in 5th and one in 1st.
Okay. And I would say that, oh, hold on. Oh, I need to restart your clock here. I would say that those ages, we are starting out with some packets of materials, and that would be that the students are learning within their classroom, and then they are going through and assessing their knowledge on the basis of the work that they can complete, whether it is remote work that lives out on that Chromebook by watching the videos that are created, by doing the activities on the Chromebook, and by packets. When we purchased the Chromebooks, it was to supplement the current styles of learning that we have with books and materials. It was not to replace those. So what you're talking about is the fact that you and your wife are working, and if you had the time, you certainly would be doing that with them during the week, but it seems like you do not have the time, and what you're sharing is it's eating up all of your weekend time.
Yeah, it's pretty much taken up all the fun family time and made it school time. And I mean, it seems like it's a mountain of work. I mean, my first grader brings home 1 or 2 papers a day of stuff that they complete in class, and then 30 pages of stuff that he has to do for the 3 days that he's not in school.
Mm-hmm. And you know, I think you are one of the persons who will tell us that. And then I can also say that I hear from parents that they are not receiving enough work, that they aren't getting anything of significance. So we have both sides of the spectrum probably being represented here within our video audience, as well as those who are, you know, probably talking to you and your wife and having conversations like that as well.
Well, I'm just wondering, is it clear, like, is the quantity enough, like, is it clear what they're expected to do? And then, like you said, is there just extra because some kids work at a faster pace? Is it clearly designated, like, what should or must be done? And then what's kind of, if a kid flies through it and they want additional practice, or not necessarily? Is it all expected to be done by the next time the kid returns to school?
Well, the notes that come home and the emails that come through via Class Dojo or whatever that thing's called, it says that it has to be done and it's going to be graded. So I would say, yeah, it's expected that it all has to be done.
Christina, are different teachers given different amounts of work, possibly?
That would have to be asked of the teachers. I can't answer that specific question for every teacher.
So is it just like a major inconsistency throughout the district or what? I mean, because I feel like my first grader is getting a mountain of work to do over the course of 3 days of not being at school. And I don't feel like he's not getting enough. I feel like he's got a mountain to do.
Have you spoken with your teachers?
Well, no.
Okay, I would follow Mr. Schimmel's advice and start with your teachers, because if you share with your teachers that the workload for your particular child isn't being done, they can share with you how the child is progressing in the classroom with them. So I would be reaching out to the teacher so that the teacher can advise you and help with your situation.
Well, my son he actually did ask his teacher why he has to have so much homework. Now, this being a first grader, you wouldn't expect him to say, why do I need to have so much homework? And to get the response that he did. But he got, this is what I have to do. That's what he got out of his teacher.
I will verify that that is an authentic statement. So I will make sure that I check up on that one on Thursday.
Okay, well, that was all I had.
Thank you very much, Don. I appreciate your comments tonight.
Yes, thank you for taking the time to hear them.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to move down the list, and I see Brenda, so I'm going to allow Brenda to speak.
Unmute. Okay, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can.
Okay. This is Brenda Oberheim, and I live in Woodland Court. And I heard you go over some of the numbers earlier, Christina. Are we currently in a position to be in school 5 days with our numbers?
No, not yet. Not yet. We are seeing that percentage positivity rate is now under the 5%. The other number would be the 10 positive or 10, less than 10 positive cases under 100,000. And that's the number two that, we're very concerned about. So as these numbers keep going down, obviously they will or will not test anymore. So, and personally, this is my own personal opinion. If you tested more, I think that number would be down under the 10 for 100,000. But that's me. I'm not a medical professional. I don't pretend to be one. But it seems that those inconsistencies are not helping us at this point.
Right. And just to clarify, so we're saying that we need these, because there are other schools meeting 5 days a week. And when these numbers are as low as you say that you need them to be, then the teachers will have to face the people not being 6 feet apart anymore. Was that clear, or do you want me to explain it a little better? Do you know what I'm saying? So if other schools are doing it and we're going to have to face that anyways, but we're still really kind of worried about this number, at what point do we go, the other schools they're doing okay? We could probably venture out and try it.
I have not contacted the other schools to see if they are doing okay, but I really would be interested in having that conversation to see if they are, number one. That would be number one. Number two, I hear this a lot, that why can't you do what everybody else does? Well, we're not everybody else for a few reasons. Number one, that class size is completely different at every level. The special needs populations, completely different at every level. Transportation, completely different at every level. Having one building versus having 4 buildings. There are so many different types of variables that exist with this. Plus,
right, and we've been talking, it's been a conversation now for, weeks and months, actually, that I've been addressing this. And we've had time, all the variables, yes, we have them. But what are we doing to say, okay, how are they doing it? And I appreciate you saying that you would ask the other schools, but for weeks now, they've been doing it. And I would think, and I'm going to speak freely, I would really think that by now, someone would have gotten with them and said, how are you doing it? How are things going? Which then kind of leads me into my next point.
Here's what I can tell you, Brenda. I'm going to stop you right there. We meet every week. We talk every week. Just because I can't tell you what I know, I'm not going to tell you what I know.
Well, you just said that you hadn't talked to them. You just said you hadn't spoken to them.
I speak to them every single week. We meet on a specific day and we speak about things. But there are things that I think would be very interesting if the public knew. So,
and I'm okay with not knowing those. I'm not pressuring you to tell me things that I don't need to know. I'm just wondering, have you spoken to them and have you tried to get this information of how they're doing it? And that was I'll come back to what we were just talking about. It was the 5 days, and are we in the position to get them back in school like the other people are doing? And it sounds like you are trying to get them going in that direction. And since you are trying to get them in that direction, I was wondering, why hadn't we kind of already put ourselves in the position like, okay, when we do get to this point, so we don't have to have so many preliminary discussions, because we have been talking about it, and I have definitely been pushing to get the kids back in school 5 days because of the example of Mr. Lynch's situation and other people's situations. You know, why are we not there? Why are we just starting some preliminary conversations? So that was my one, and if you want to write it down so you can come back and respond. I don't want to take too much time. I know there's a time limit, but my other thing is, you said you wanted to talk to the teachers. I'm sure you have been talking to the teachers, and it is a nice thing to ask the teachers. However, since the beginning of this, nurses, grocery store workers, all those people have had to be out there doing their job because they were necessary jobs. And our kids need to be taught by teachers in the classroom. It's a necessary thing. If they have to consider themselves frontline workers, that's okay. But I just want to say, I don't think that we should be saying, are you comfortable to come in and teach these kids? We need the teachers. We need them to do their jobs for the kids. Do you understand where I'm coming from on that?
I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah, so great. Do you want to do your job? We need you to do your job. Now what? That's what I had.
Okay. I think I can only answer one part of that, honestly, and that would be, we have been speaking about this. It's not that we haven't been speaking about this. We have been speaking about this since we had to decide to go into hybrid, and we alerted everybody July the 31st. So again, when you have what you have coming from other governmental agencies, coming from the state, that these are the recommendations, you follow the recommendations so that, number one, no one is hurt. That's the first thing. No one is hurt. And okay. And so that you do that, and you do that with, so that you do that then within all of the legal parameters, all of the physical boundaries, and all of those other pieces that are people. These are people, students, parents, teachers, they're all people. So when we're talking about that, those are all considerations. And as we're moving back, we certainly want to watch what those numbers are telling us. Those numbers have been going down in certain aspects, although last week it seems that we were a community to watch. We were a county to watch. This week it doesn't seem that we are, which is fine. I think the turning point for us, Brenda, is the fact that we are receiving so many inconsistencies at this point. And those inconsistencies are sending us off in many, many different directions. So now we're left with trying to evaluate the different types of directions that we're being given and make the best decisions. So that's what I can say and share with you. But thank you for your comment.
Yes, and I also wanted to say about the sports, I definitely support getting more people to the sports. And I would also appreciate, like, if you're going to, you know, try to make a decision and have a vote, that you would actually attend the sporting event so that you could watch how everything transpires, see the amount of space there. You know, are the kids putting on masks when they come off the field? Are they not? Like, you know, that would be an important thing to do before you take the vote, so that you're not, you know, just speaking to it without knowing everything about it.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Okay. Sebastian, I don't see any other hands up, so we'll have another public comment session at the end of the meeting. So go ahead and close this section of the public comment time, and with that, let's move on with the agenda. We have some action items for us tonight, and Christina, do you want to? Well, tell you what. Let me tackle G1. on the approval of the PSBA officers. You know, we have there's 2 candidates on the slate for vice president. And if the board's okay with, we'll essentially just do this like we're going to nominate somebody for, you know, like appointing a school board member or something like that. So at this point, I guess I'd like to open the floor for nominations for that vice president for the PSBA office of the vice president for the PSBA. And does anybody have any nomination they'd like to make?
Mr. Schimmel, I don't have those names in front of me. Could you
Yeah.
let us know the names?
Yeah, sure. We have Sabrina Backer from the Franklin Area School District in Venango County. And then we have Daniel O'Keefe from the Northgate School District in Allegheny County. And I mean, there's a little bio on each of them from the thing that Brandy sent out, but so any nominations out there for either Sabrina Backer from Franklin Area School District and Daniel O'Keefe from Northgate School District?
I nominate Sabrina.
Any other nominations?
I nominate Mr. O'Keefe.
Okay, since there's only 2 candidates, I'd take a motion to close the nominations.
Motion to close.
Second,
Second.
and all in favor of closing nominations, say aye.
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 Okay, we have our 2 candidates, and I think I'd like to do this then. I think it will meet protocol is simply, Brandy, would you do a roll call vote and each one of us will just say who we want to vote for? And then the majority vote getter is the person.
Mr. Beery,
I'll vote for Sabrina.
Mr. Kunkel,
Mr. O'Keefe, is that his last name?
Yes.
Mrs. Marriott,
Sabrina.
Dr. Mathers,
Sabrina.
Mr. Ruffing,
Mr. O'Keefe,
Mr. Schimmel,
Mr. O'Keefe.
Mr. Snell,
Sabrina.
Mr. Ulmer,
Mr. O'Keefe.
the tie.
Danny, where are you? Okay. All right. So what's our?
Do it again, Dave.
Okay.
Dave, vote again.
All right. So Brandy, go ahead and take another round on the voting. And well, you know what? We didn't have any comment or discussion or anything like that. But let me tell you, I've read both their bios, and one of the reasons I liked Mr. O'Keefe was that guy has incredible experience with PSBA, with all kinds. He is tuned into what goes on in PSBA. He's been there. He's been part of them, and we know that when you bring somebody new on board, yes, you get fresh ideas, new looks at things. But when you've got super critical issues like what PSBA has to resolve on our behalf, that was my sentiment. You know, if you'd have changed their names but left their bios the same, I'd be going for Sabrina Backer. So I was going for a more experienced person. That's where I was coming from. Not to lobby for anybody, but I don't really have a horse in the race anyway. So, well, I guess I kind of do. So, all right, go ahead, Brandy.
Okay. Dr. Beery,
Gosh, I guess still Sabrina.
Mr. Kunkel,
Mr. O'Keefe.
Mrs. Marriott,
Sabrina.
Dr. Mathers,
Sabrina.
Mr. Ruffing,
Mr. O'Keefe,
Mr. Schimmel,
I know where this is going. Let's tilt the tables here. Sabrina Backer.
Mr. Snell,
Sabrina.
and Mr. Almer.
Sabrina.
All right, moving right along. So Brandy, you, let's see, will you be voting on behalf of the board then with that slate of candidates? Is that correct?
Yes, I have to have the board approve the rest of the candidates so I can place the vote.
Ah, okay. All right, then I guess a motion to approve the slate of officers for the PSBA. Do we have a motion to approve that slate with including Sabrina Backer?
Motion to approve.
Do we have a
Second.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it. And do we need a motion to authorize you, Brandy?
No, I'm already approved.
Superintendent, do you want to take us from there?
We can do that. May I please have a consent motion for P1 and P2 together?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of P1 and P2, or I guess discussion, I'm sorry, discussion. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, ayes have it.
May I have a motion for consent of P3 through P5?
Motion to approve.
Move to second.
Any questions or discussion?
Yes. I have a question, Christina, on the split position. Was that normally a one position job position, a one person position, and two teachers decided to go together? Is that what happened?
I think it's pretty common sometimes to be in partnership with someone else as an advisor. So I have seen this before, Ron.
Okay. The other thing, oh, that's it. That's it. Thank you.
Sure.
All in, is that a question, somebody? No? Okay. All in favor then of approving P3, 4, and 5? Say aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it.
Under academics, A1, approval for a waiver of tuition be granted to student 211530, grade 12, for the remainder of the 2021 school year.
Motion out there?
Move to approve.
Second.
We got somebody's got to do that for Jen. Her voice isn't going to make it for the night. So who's our second out there?
Bill
Bill.
was.
All right. Questions on that? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it.
Transportation, T1, approval of the following addition to the school bus drivers list for the 2021 school year. Lynette Harris for Kozer Busing.
Move to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Any questions? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it.
And that concludes the action items.
Okay, then we'll continue on with item 5 and that new item, and we'll pick up that discussion on spectators at sporting events and continued discussion, continued thoughts. Bill's led off the bat and has given us some thoughts. Bill, you have anything else to add to that, or anybody else?
Thank you, Mr. Schimmel. No, I really don't. I think I got it all out, and it's my hope that other board members will see this the way I and many others in the community see it. So thank you.
In that
I
event,
would like to comment that I agree with what Bill has said. And I do believe that at some point we need to bring that to a vote, if nothing else, to make a statement to the PIAA.
could we obtain, like you said, like the total capacity, and then I assume, would we propose to allow, you know, a certain percent in, whether it be 25% or whatever?
Yeah, because I believe restaurants are now up to 50%, aren't they? Yeah. So,
Yes.
Bill.
Yes.
Okay.
Only if they self-certify, Mr. Schimmel. And self-certification means that they're agreeing to follow all of Governor Wolf's mandates.
Well,
And the ones that self-certify will actually be put on a list, and it will be a public list for people to look at. My opinion, I think it's the reason why the self-certification is being required. I think it's a reason for Governor Wolf to send people out and start fining establishments or taking licenses for having infractions when they said that they'd self-certify and follow all the regulations. That's my opinion on why he's requiring it. I may be wrong, but like I said, for the 50%, they need to self-certify.
And not that, and I'm not suggesting that 50% is a number. I don't know what number we would use as a percent, just in terms of the idea that there's some relaxation has begun, even from the governor's office, a little bit anyway. So, Bill, when you, as you're thinking about this over the next couple of weeks, Bill, be thinking about some kind of approach. If you want to make a motion in October there, some kind of approach, some kind of rationale as to how you arrived at some motion. If that's where if that's where you want this to go, be thinking about that. We could talk about it too, Bill.
Okay, Dave, I will. But really, I could see a 50%. Ultimately, I'd love to see us be able to put 50% of the stadium's capacity. I'd like to see that be able to be done, but I'm betting that we wouldn't be able to. I think it's always good to ask for more than you actually will settle for. But even with proper precautions and social distancing, we know families sit together. The brothers, sisters, mom, dad, grandpa. They're going to sit together, and even maintaining 6 feet between people on both sides of that stadium. I honestly can't see why we can't put 750 to 1,000 people in there, and still, be compliant with the restrictions that I had mentioned.
And
I'll just add a comment.
Mr. Schimmel, keep in mind that 50% that he okayed, that was for inside bars and restaurants. That he didn't change anything for the outside, unfortunately.
Agreed with Mr. Snell, and Mr. Snell's correct. So I guess an arguing point would be, my gosh, if you can put 50% capacity inside, you certainly ought to be able to put 50% capacity outside.
Yes, and I agree. And I think that I've been researching all day today practically because of this, the judge refusing the stay from the governor, and the legislators that I've been in contact with all have a different story on what they think it means. So I think we need to have our legal gurus really look into this too before we do make a move.
And my comment would be, as we prioritize and think of the numbers, that it be for the families of the football players and the band and the cheerleaders. Because I'm not sure how you're going to have a lottery system or whatever to allow community members that are not family members of the students. But I certainly would support having, and I don't know what that number is. We'd have to figure that out. How many, if you give 2 tickets or 4 tickets per family, how that would easily get us up to 750, I would assume. And then you have to think about the away team. How many do you give to them as well?
And
so we can allow general community in.
And one other question is, at what point do we start charging for an entrance fee?
One of the, in talking with Deanna Termina a few days ago, a week ago or so, one of the thoughts was let the students will have access to tickets, but also, like Dottie said, the family members of the athletes, cheer and band, the family members would have tickets to get in, and then the student body as a whole would also have access to X number of tickets. And by trying to tally up what the head count would be, potential head count will be because of that, that would tell us how many fans we're actually talking about allowing into the stadium. And it would say whether we're potentially, above where we want to be, or maybe we're shy and we're in good shape. So I guess we have to start to put some numbers together.
And I would ask again, at what point would we start charging for them tickets?
Don't know.
I don't know if we charge it all this year. I say it's only 4 more home games for football anyway.
Yeah.
Well, and we have other sports too. I don't know. I'm not sure how many
or something.
What's that, Sue?
Could we ask for a donation or something? Like Scott said, so it's not mandatory, but there's that if, people know they're used to paying for admission, right? That, if they want.
Dan,
yeah, I'm okay with that. I would certainly be willing. Well, I guess I don't have family. I'm not going to the game, I guess.
The only other outside sports we charge for, Dan, is soccer, right? At the high school?
In the fall, we only charge for stadium events. So there are an occasional soccer game that we put in the stadium when they request it. Of course, we had a lot more when the fields were too wet to play on, but the only time we charge is when an event is in the stadium.
Okay, thanks.
Dan, when does wrestling start?
I don't know that. PIAA has not made a determination on winter sports yet. They're throwing around a date of January 1st in a condensed season. So that's still up in the air.
Okay, because doesn't that normally start before January?
Yeah, they would start the preseason in November, like November 15, 16, 17, somewhere around there. I don't have the exact date.
Okay, so as of now, that's not even being considered for any time before January.
As of now, that's the date on the calendar, but PIAA has discussed moving that to January 1st. They've not taken official action. Much like the spectator thing, the guidance we got was voluntarily comply. The stay order that was denied today eliminates the 25 and the 250. So there's just a lot of uncertainty and unknowns about spectators at this point. I would think any number that we come up with, permission to continue to speak, Dave, Mr. President?
Yeah, absolutely.
That when we look at a number, we eliminate players, coaches, officials, the band, media, and everybody to run the event. They are separated enough from the stands that I don't think they even need to be considered in the numbers. The other concern is we have a game October 2nd in the stadium. And with how this has played out, we may want to consider adding some additional people to the game. I've been put in a position of having to pick and choose and answer for that. And I've been a principal all along that provides opportunities for kids and hate to deny. You can ask the staff some of the crazy things we do to get kids to participate. So this has been a challenge and difficult for me. So I would ask that we at least look at something to loosen the numbers for the October 2nd game as a starting point, maybe 500 tickets to see what that does in the stadium. That would give you some numbers to base a vote on then later in October at the October board meeting. I worry about saying 50% capacity because I know there are times we've sold 1,400 tickets and the place looks pretty packed still. So 50%, I think we would be tight. So just a suggestion, but it would be a starting point and give everybody a chance to see what we're doing. I can also tell you that if you didn't watch the game Friday night, I think you can pick up some live streams. Our kids were spread out from the 10-yard line to the 10-yard line. They all have clear plastic face masks over their helmet face mask. That's how they mask up. And our coaches have been diligent about enforcing that. I can't say that for all programs in the league, but I can certainly say ours has been top shelf when it comes to implementing these COVID protocols. So those are just my thoughts. You guys can do what you want with it, but
Mr. Taramina. Mr. Taramina,
yes.
would it be possible before the next board meeting that we can get a number? Because I don't really know what the capacity of our stadium is, home and, visitor sides. Is it possible that we could get an estimate of how many we can put in there, which would maybe better help guide us in a decision?
Yep, I can pull that. I'll work with Joe and we'll pull some numbers together. We probably have some photos of the stands as well at different capacities. I know if you look at the graduation photo, it was on our website. I think it's about 1,200 people in the stands. So 1,000 you're going to see is going to be pretty tight. But I will pull that. I can pull that together. Again, my fear though is October 2nd is coming and we're still locked into that 250.
Hey, Dave.
Yes, Scott.
This is Scott. Can we make a motion that if Dan's okay with this, I don't want to put him in a position, but once him and Joe do that estimate, could we leave it to their discretion to come up with a number, whether it be 500, 750, at their discretion, socially distancing the stadium and everything, let them come up with a number that is suitable to us telling them that we want people socially distancing in the stands, and this is a number that we can have. Is that possible rather than say, 500 and we underestimated by a couple hundred? Would that be suitable to everyone?
Socially distance and mask.
Yeah, absolutely, Dottie. Yeah, mask and, they can measure off the stadium, and once they know, okay, we can fit 600 people, with distancing on both sides of the stadium. I think I'm like Dan. I don't think we want to wait because then we're past that next home game. But if they could say, in a week that we're going to give out 700 tickets, I'm okay with leaving it to their discretion if Dan's okay with that. I don't want to put him in a position to make that call.
I'm comfortable with increasing capacity, yes. There's 250 looks ridiculous in there.
Okay, so I'm going to make a motion that we allow.
Hold it. Before you do that, Scott, I just want to bring up. I just want to bring up one thing before you make that motion. We all have to look at. We need to get legal guidance on this. There is legislators out there that are saying that ruling by that judge only affects the counties that were in that lawsuit. That they're saying that it doesn't affect all of Pennsylvania. And that's why I think we need to get legal guidance before we make any decisions on this.
Okay, well, I guess I would also let that up to Dan to talk to the solicitor before they come out with a number. But I think we need to give them direction because we're not going to have a meeting till after the next one. So I'm going to make the motion that we allow administration to measure off the stadium, socially distance, people need to wear masks, and come up with a number that is suitable and check with legal counsel and move forward with a number for the October 2nd home game or whatever that would be, and for the rest of the year. Sorry, Brandy, I know that's confusing, but.
And Mr. Conkle, that would be, that number would include both sides of the stadium, correct?
Correct. And if they want to include the end of the stadium, the ends, I guess I leave that in Dan's discretion.
A fair way to do it would even be maybe start by adding up the students on cheer, football, and band and multiply by 2 if they each get to have 2 tickets, see what that number is. If that's too low, multiply by 3 and you almost see how those numbers played out if every participant in those 3 activities had 2 or 3 tickets.
We have a motion and we need a second, then we'll continue discussion, and I think our discussion can help put the parameters on our thinking because it's a fairly general motion. The motion is first that pending legal confirmation of the validity of our motion, that we're authorizing the administration to come up with a plan to safely and properly socially distance an appropriate number of fans in our facility, exclusive of the teams and the cheer and teams and cheering. And I believe there was a discussion maybe of the band being on the track to allow for additional stand room. So I think that would be something that would be in discretion. So anyway, that's the general flavor of the motion. We need Scott, did I characterize that right?
Right on it, Dave.
Okay, then we need a second, and let's continue discussion to help put parameters on it for the, we have a second.
I will second.
Okay, continued discussion, or do we get the flavor of, because this is a pretty broad motion. And I think we absolutely have 100% confidence in Dan's assessment of things. He knows student life and athletic life better than anybody in the district. So,
well, don't forget he included Joe in that, so I guess that's helpful.
Okay, Joe can handle a tape measure. That's good. We love you, Joe.
I myself don't feel that this is a decision that should be made by the administration. I think, especially since we don't have all the information yet. So I think the board needs to get the information. If we got to call an emergency meeting to make this vote, so be it. But I think this is a vote to an important vote that needs to be done by the board to make that decision, not leave that decision up to the discretion of the administration. And that vote would be made once we have all the information from legal counsel and all avenues are looked at.
That I would really appreciate that, because once the motion is a good motion to have. However, it is after consultation and obtaining a legal opinion. So if that legal opinion comes back that no, we shouldn't do this or that or X, Y, Z, it will require explanation. It's not a simple motion here. So I do think that we should have an emergency meeting, one line item, and move forward with it after we have the opinion and after the facts can be provided to you about that socially distanced space that you're looking for. And then allow you to understand what those facts are. There's too many nebulous pieces, and I think it would be much better for the board to be able to be responsible and answer once you have the facts. And right now, I'm not sure that we do.
Okay. All right. Scott, and you've heard the concerns of Christina, and that's, I get that. I will say, Christina, the sentiment that we would put this in Dan's hand is us shouting to the mountains how much we trust that guy. Dan, you got to know that. We trust you, but we're not going to throw you under the bus.
Right, no, he, by PIAA standards, is in charge of athletics, and he is the right person for that. However, I would say don't weigh him down by the decision. Let's get the facts, and then, I need Dan up and upright, not floating.
Okay. All right, Scott,
I'm good.
you okay with?
I'm well aware. I know October 2nd's coming
Okay.
quick. So.
All right, well, we need to plan to have an emergency meeting next week. Scott, are you okay with withdrawing that motion?
Yeah, I mean, if we can, we need to pull something together for at least, if it doesn't change, then we don't need to meet, but.
Could we have the motion, just Scott's motion, say, allow administration to obtain a legal opinion and to do the things that you asked Scott with Joe and Dan about coming up with the stadium numbers? Can we just say the board is directing the administration to do that? Can we make that the motion so that it's clear that you're directing us to do that?
Well, I think
next week.
I think we want you to do that regardless. I think just withdrawing the motion, and then you know where we want to go with this. We need to meet next week so we can have that motion and be prepared for that October 2nd game. So
I'll withdraw my motion.
Yeah, Scott withdraws the motion. All right. Okay, then that being the case, Christina, you know where we want to try to go with this, and we'll plan.
We should plan it right now so that the public knows what day we're looking at.
Okay. When do you think you'd have the information for us?
You just want to plan for a week from now?
Okay. All right. Okay, so we'll plan for a meeting on the 29th. Be a very brief meeting, a one item only, unless something falls out of the sky. So, all right.
We'll also be able to present to you how we're going to distribute tickets as well. So we'll have a whole plan.
Okay, excellent.
One other, I'm wondering, given how some people respond, if masks are required, if we might need more like security presence, if people are refusing to keep their masks on or anything, or how we might deal with that.
Just an update on that. We've been running several events to this point, and we've only had 2 incidents of some belligerent, I don't know how to phrase it because everything's so political, just refusing to wear masks. I'll leave it at that. And they've been asked to leave. So there's only been 2. People have been very good and very respectful of what we're trying to do. Everybody knows the importance of the seasons for the kids, the sports seasons, and as well as the academic day. So we're all trying to protect two things. We're trying to protect from going remote, and we're trying to protect as much as we can a kid's high school experience. So knowing those two things, people have been very cooperative and supportive of us, and we certainly appreciate it.
Hey, Dan, let me ask you a question on that. And if somebody at an event would say that they have a medical condition, do we ask them to leave?
We're still asking them to put a face covering on, even if it's a face shield.
Do we have extra face shields? Because I'm sure that if somebody has a medical condition where they can't wear the face mask, they should be able to wear a shield because it sticks out from their face. Do we have face shields available if that is the case?
We have supplies, specifically face shields. I don't know because we've only had 2 incidents of it, and none of them have claimed. I take that back. One claimed medical condition, and then he said he lied. So
they just refused to wear anything.
Yeah, and at that point, it becomes a trespass issue. It's not a mask issue.
Okay.
But again, people have been very respectful and responsible. So, and I would imagine they would keep that up.
Okay. Guess with that, we know where we're going. We're ready to move on to the next item. And somebody confirm, am I, I'm thinking I have a little computer problem here. Anybody okay with hearing me?
We're good with hearing you, Dave.
Okay, all right. A little blinking around on one of the monitors here, wasn't sure. We're on to the next item then, the information. And was there anything in particular you wanted to present, Christina, on this last item?
No, at this point, I think we are good. We've covered a lot of ground.
Okay, then with that, let's have the final session for public comments. And Sebastian, if you would go ahead and open the public comment session.
Okay, so again, as a reminder, if anyone in the public would like to speak, you can raise your hand at this time by clicking on the blue hand icon on the screen, at which time we will go down the list alphabetically and provide you 3 minutes to talk. And we just ask that you please state your full name and your address before speaking.
Okay, Sebastian, I'm not seeing any hands being raised at this point. So with that, let's close the public comment session and forward with that. I guess we're ready to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. President, we do have a need to be speaking to Sebastian, Dan, to you, and to Dottie after this meeting.
Okay, all right. So another, you want to just give us another Zoom session or just stay on this one?
I'll send an email out to you guys.
Okay. So motion to adjourn. Do we have one?
Scott, I'll make the motion.
We have a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. All right. Good night, folks. Thank you. Thank you to the public for coming out.